You probably won't believe this, but I found myself in the crosshairs of a neighborhood manipulator named Karen, who hatched a plan more deceitful than anyone could ever imagine. This Karen fakes her pregnancy to get unlimited child support. This is the story of how I navigated through this web of lies and deception. Here's how it all went down. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, sitting across from Karen at our local coffee shop, the air thick with tension and disbelief. Karen, with her signature demanding tone, just dropped a bombshell on me, claiming she's pregnant, and, somehow, it's my responsibility to provide unlimited child support. "Gimme money! I'm pregnant," she had said, not a hint of jest in her eyes. It all started a few months ago when Karen moved into the neighborhood. She was the talk of the town, not because of her charm or wit, but because of her knack for stirring up trouble over the smallest inconveniences. From complaining about the neighbor's dog barking to sending back her order 3 times at the local diner because it wasn't perfect, Karen had quickly made a name for herself. And somehow, in a twist of fate, our paths crossed and we ended up on a couple of dates. I realized soon enough that Karen was not my cup of tea. Her stubbornness and penchant for drama were too much for me. I decided to end things, thinking that would be the last of it. Oh, how wrong I was. As the days turned into weeks, Karen's claims grew more outrageous. She started sending me doctor's appointments she had supposedly made, ultrasound pictures she found online, and a list of baby names. "We should start planning for our future," she said one day, her voice eerily calm over the phone. "Our baby needs a stable home, and you need to provide that." I tried to reason with her to explain the impossibility of her claims, but Karen was like a wall, immovable and cold. "You're just in denial," she snapped back. "But don't worry, you'll come around when the baby is here. Until then, I expect your support, financially and emotionally." Her audacity was staggering. She had an answer for everything, a counterclaim for every denial I made. It was as if she lived in a parallel universe where her lies were the only truth. The climax of our saga reached its peak when Karen decided to take her story public. She created a blog detailing her pregnancy journey with me as the villain who refused to accept responsibility. The blog went viral overnight, painting me as the antagonist in her fabricated narrative. Faced with public scrutiny and the ever-looming threat of legal action, I felt trapped in a nightmare of Karen's making. Her story, though entirely false, was convincing to those who didn't know her penchant for manipulation and deceit. It was during this time of chaos that I received a message from someone claiming to have irrefutable proof that Karen was lying. The sender, who wished to remain anonymous, had evidence that would expose Karen's deception and clear my name. Armed with this new evidence, I confronted Karen once more, this time in a more public setting, surrounded by those who had been following our story. "This ends now, Karen," I declared, my voice echoing with a mix of anger and relief. "You've lied to everyone, but the truth comes out today." As I presented the evidence, Karen's facade finally cracked. The documents, messages, and even video evidence made it clear that Karen had never been pregnant. The crowd's support shifted as they realized the extent of her deception. Karen tried to defend herself, to spin another web of lies, but the truth was undeniable. In the aftermath, Karen's world unraveled at breakneck speed. The community she had deceived turned against her, their support transforming into disdain. The blog she had used to spread her lies was taken down, but the damage to her reputation was irreparable. Karen's departure from town was met with a collective sigh of relief. She left behind a trail of lessons about trust, manipulation, and the consequences of deceit. For me, the experience was a harsh reminder of the dangers of naivety and the importance of skepticism. As for the community, Karen's story became a cautionary tale, whispered about in coffee shops and around dinner tables. It served as a stark warning of the lengths to which some would go for personal gain, leaving behind a legacy of mistrust and caution. In the end, the saga of Karen's fake pregnancy and her quest for unlimited child support became more than just a personal ordeal. It evolved into a narrative of community resilience and the triumph of truth over deceit, leaving a lasting impact on all who were touched by it. Wow, just finished narrating this wild ride of a story about Karen and her unbelievable scheme. Can you believe someone would go to such lengths? It's like something straight out of a soap opera, except it's too crazy even for TV. After 30 years together and a life filled with shared dreams, my boyfriend's unexpected proposal and subsequent retirement announcement left me in a whirlwind of emotion, questioning the foundation of our relationship. Here's how it all went down. Yesterday, after dinner, my boyfriend 53-year-old, whom I've been with for 30 years, proposed to me 52-year-old. He approached me with a box, asking me to open it. Inside was a ring. I had imagined this moment countless times, but I never expected to feel so apathetic. My boyfriend then announced that he was now retired and wanted to relax and enjoy life with me, ideally as his wife. As touching as his speech was, I had expressed my strong desire to marry from the 5th year of our relationship onwards. My wishes were continuously dismissed, met with empty promises and gaslighting. Despite therapy and counseling, nothing seemed to change. One counselor suggested that even though I had convinced him to attend therapy, it wouldn't make a difference if he had already made up his mind. I was in denial, thinking we were making progress when in reality, he was just stalling. We have 4 children together. Our 3 oldest are adults, and our youngest is a 15-year-old girl who was sleeping over elsewhere when he proposed. All of our children attended a private school with typical Southern soccer parents. I had to withstand PTA mom's snide comments about not sharing a last name with my children. The preteen years were particularly challenging, as other kids would taunt mine, saying, "Your dad would rather sin and go to hell than marry your mom." My boyfriend's mother once told him that marriage would be selfish on my part, dismissing it as just a piece of paper. With time, my boyfriend rose through the ranks to become an executive. As a stay-at-home mom, I always felt there was a power imbalance, exacerbated by the fear that I could be dismissed at any moment. I stayed partly because I wanted the best life for my children, and because I felt proud and fortunate to be with such a successful, intelligent man. But more importantly, I stayed because I loved him. In recent years, my boyfriend's career has hit a rough patch. While he'll never be poor, his company took a hit in 2020, and he made enemies of associates and board members. He chose to step back from his role and accepted a generous severance package. Now he's living off his investments and wants to relax. I was disappointed with the way his career ended and how he treated people. I've been considering whether I should leave and find someone else once our youngest child turns 18. The proposal came as a shock, given my recent avoidance of any conversations about the future. He enthusiastically spoke about downsizing our house for travel and reducing other expenses. But since we're not married, it's all his money and his house. He noticed my eye roll, which offended him. When he asked what was wrong, I pointed out that it's only now that he's downsizing that he considers me marriage material. He became upset and accused me of only finding our relationship disrespectful now that he's no longer an executive. He even implied that I was a gold digger. Enraged, I left, stating that I might seek out a respectful relationship because I'm not sure what respect means to him anymore. Am I the jerk? At the time of my original post, my boyfriend and I hadn't spoken since our argument about engagement. I know him well enough to understand that when he closes the bedroom door before I enter, it's a sign for me to sleep in one of the guest rooms, which I did. However, I broke the silence this morning. I expressed my feelings of dismissal over the years and explained how we've learned from our experiences in our 50s. We've seen how quickly people at work, who once admired us, can turn against us. I emphasized that true life partners are invaluable and hard to find, wishing he would appreciate my value. I feel as if he always thinks there's someone prettier, better, and just as loving just around the corner. I apologized for my previous behavior, but made it clear that if he wants marriage, I expect a quick commitment and genuine happiness from him regarding our future together. I clarified that I don't need a big celebration. He listened to me and eventually questioned if my concerns were about financial security. He explained that being an executive's partner does require certain obligations, but I would still have the option to work if I wanted. He accused me of not appreciating my social position, which he believes is significantly due to his career. However, he wasn't upset about my earlier display of frustration, stating that he didn't achieve success by being overly sensitive. He emphasized that I was free to leave at any time and warned against using manipulation to make him feel trapped. He assured me that the engagement ring was mine, and I could do what I wanted with it. He also reassured me that he would fully support his child financially and would never shirk his responsibilities. He expressed his unwillingness to proceed with our marriage, but extended an invitation for me to travel with him. Since his travel plans were not negotiable, I would need to secure a remote job if I wanted to work. This left me feeling sad, and I spent a few hours alone afterward. Feeling like I had nothing to lose, I asked him if he would support me pursuing an associate's degree for a technical career, which would likely require in-person attendance. To my surprise, he responded by insinuating that if I didn't travel with him, he would not tolerate periods without sex. His indifference left me shocked, as he returned to his previous position of take it or leave it. I argued that we're all aging. I've been supportive during his health struggles, and he can't expect to find someone else who will show him the same loyalty. At this point, I'm considering leaving. While I've considered traveling with him and seeking a remote job, I feel resentment about his continuous need for control in our relationship. I'm not sure of my worth, but I believe there must be something better out there, at least in terms of a partner. It's been over a month and I'm struggling, but I remain hopeful. I find hope in the kindness of others, including my adult children, employers, courts, and even my children's father. I still believe in the love I've given freely and hope that it will eventually be reciprocated. Since my children's father accused me of trying to keep him emotionally captive, I've made efforts to respect his freedom. My attempts to give him space and demonstrate my ability to live without him were met with anger. He criticized everything from the speed of my housework to my spending habits, and asked for the engagement ring back during an argument. I've taken to heart the advice and comments on my previous posts, particularly the suggestion not to leave the house if pressured to do so. However, only days after our argument, he had a lawyer serve me a notice to evict. Now he's filed to evict me. I've sought legal aid, but was disheartened by the lack of sympathy and the implication that my status as a mother and partner won't protect me from eviction. I've been applying for office jobs, and despite rejections, I remain hopeful that a better opportunity will come along. My adult children suggested I apply for SNAP, but I haven't yet due to feelings of shame. They believe that if we no longer live together, the government will assist me in collecting child support. My children are hesitant to upset their father, but they've tried to help where they can. After being rejected from a gas station job, I've continued to apply to numerous remote and on-site positions advertised as willing to train the right candidate. I hope that one of these companies will take a chance on me. I suspect my boyfriend wants me to beg, but I'm unsure if that would persuade him to drop the eviction suit. I'm doing my best to maintain normalcy, continuing to apply for jobs, and holding on to my dignity. That's all I can update for now, but I continue to have hope. Hearing this story, it's a poignant reminder of how crucial communication and mutual respect are in any relationship, and the painful consequences when they're absent. It's a call to never take love for granted, and to always fight for what truly matters. In the bustling corridors of our workplace, a seemingly mundane choice to use the center stall in the ladies' room spiraled into an unforeseen confrontation, challenging the boundaries of privacy, etiquette, and legal rights. Accused by a coworker of denying her essential access and thrust into the formalities of an EEO hearing, I found myself at the heart of a dispute that questioned the very norms we take for granted. Here's how it all went down, using a throwaway account due to privacy concerns. On Friday, I had a perplexing encounter at work. For context, my workspace consists of around 40 people, with the whole facility accommodating about 200. The facility has 5 floors, each with restrooms including ladies' and men's rooms, as well as family/gender-neutral restrooms. During a busy time, I used the only available stall in the ladies' room. After I finished and left, I was abruptly confronted by a fellow employee. She accused me of being rude and impolite for using the center stall, and claimed my stay in the restroom almost caused her an embarrassing accident. She left before I could respond. This incident left me bewildered. Until this point, I wasn't aware of any ladies' room etiquette that suggests adjoining stalls shouldn't be occupied at the same time. In my 15-plus years at this workplace, I have never encountered such an issue. Moreover, 2 other restrooms were available for use at the time. I informed our boss and my shop steward, as we are a unionized workplace. Despite this, I'm still unsure about the situation. My colleagues, including my spouse, are equally confused. Is there something I'm missing here? Today, I discovered that instead of addressing our boss or the union, my coworker filed a complaint with our EEO compliance office. She claims her rights are being violated due to the denial of restroom use. With this happening right before the holidays, no progress will be made until after New Year's. I'm unsure of the complaint's specifics or if any other individuals are named. The union representative has reached out to the office for more information and requested an interview for me to share my perspective. My coworker has already been interviewed as part of the complaint process. Based on these interviews, the office could decide not to pursue the issue further, investigate more, make a determination, or escalate it to a higher authority. Understandably, this situation has left me uneasy, especially during the holiday season. I doubt this will extend beyond the interview stage, but anything is possible. In the meantime, I must continue working with this woman every day. To avoid potential issues, I've started using the HC family restrooms. The office has been notably silent about this, so either my coworker has kept quiet, or gossip only circulates when I'm present. My coworker, henceforth referred to as Penelope, filed a complaint against me. We had an equal employment opportunity, EEO, hearing this past Wednesday, which my union representative and I prepared for on Tuesday. His advice was to stick to the facts and answer only the questions asked, so I did just that. The hearing was serious, though less formal than court or a deposition. The first question caught me off guard. How long have you been Penelope's supervisor? I clarified that I was not her supervisor, nor was I a supervisor in any unit. My rep then provided the hearing officer with my job specifications, clearly stating that my role is not supervisory. Penelope had filed a complaint alleging that I denied her timely access to the restroom. She apparently never clarified to the EEO office that I was not her supervisor. I explained that I was in the ladies' room, 2 open stalls were available, someone entered and exited quickly, and as I left the restroom, someone rushed past me. I didn't recognize this person as Penelope until she later confronted me. My union rep provided evidence supporting my account. He brought floor plans showing accessible restrooms adjacent to the ladies' room and obtained security footage from the hallway during the incident. The video confirmed that I entered the restroom. 2 people exited. Penelope entered and exited quickly, and I left shortly afterward. My time in the restroom was just over 2 minutes. The EEO officer said he will release his findings in 2 weeks. While he kept a poker face, I sensed that the fact I wasn't Penelope's supervisor and the timeline of events had surprised him. Denying someone restroom use violates federal law, so this could have been serious if I held authority over Penelope. However, we have the same title and she has seniority. I'm awaiting the EEO officer's findings, hoping for a positive outcome. The EEO hearing officer initially said a decision would be made in 2 weeks. However, this was delayed due to additional interviews with my direct supervisor and Penelope. I don't have first-hand information about these interviews as I wasn't present. In the course of the investigation, Penelope's and my personnel files were requested to check any documentation related to restroom issues. Since the supervisor wasn't accompanied by a union representative, I don't have much information about what was discussed, especially as it mostly involved confidential matters. Penelope was re-interviewed to provide more detail about the incident. Upon her refusal to elaborate beyond Broad Elephant denied me the use of the restroom, she was shown the security footage provided by my representative. It was then revealed that Penelope has shy bladder syndrome. Unbeknownst to me, Penelope had been seeking accommodation for her shy bladder issues for several years. Her requests, including reserving the middle stall in the ladies' room for her sole use and installing a lock on the exterior door of the restroom, were denied. She was advised to use the accessible restrooms in the building, which she refused, claiming she wasn't disabled. When she saw the middle stall in use that day, her frustration led to the incident. All her requests were deemed unreasonable and she was directed again to use the accessible restrooms. The EEO complaint was dismissed, and Penelope was informed that any similar complaint would be dismissed immediately. There are no further actions against Penelope or me. While I don't fully understand her situation, I do sympathize with those who have bladder shyness or other bathroom privacy issues. It must be challenging when your mind and body won't cooperate. Hopefully this is the end of the matter. I appreciate the comments and PMs I've received, and I hope your stalls are always clean and well stocked with good quality toilet paper. Reflecting on the restroom dilemma, it's a stark reminder of how the most routine aspects of our daily lives can unexpectedly become the center of profound disputes, touching on issues of privacy, accommodation, and workplace dynamics. This situation underscores the importance of empathy and understanding in navigating the complexities of coexistence in shared spaces. From the moment my 3-year-old son's daycare journey began, it was fraught with challenges, from his defiance and rough play to the heart-wrenching discovery of him coming home in soiled underwear. As a parent, I was thrust into a whirlwind of meetings, misunderstandings, and the daunting task of advocating for my child amidst a sea of changing teachers and daycare policies. Here's how it all went down. My 3-year-old son has been attending his current daycare since April. He started daycare when he was just 6 weeks old, but we moved in June 2021, and this new daycare opened near our house in April 2022. I've been informed a few times that he's had trouble listening in class and has been throwing toys. We've addressed these issues and his toy throwing behavior has improved. However, I recently found out that he's been misbehaving during nap time. Even though he stopped napping before joining this daycare, they require him to engage in a quiet activity, which he refuses to do unless a teacher is present throughout. Additionally, he's been physically aggressive towards his teachers, even hitting them in the face. We have a parent-teacher meeting scheduled for later this week to discuss these issues. The class has had several teachers due to staffing problems, and the current teacher has only been there for a week. I'm wondering if the lack of a consistent teacher might be contributing to his behavior. Both my son's father and I have ADHD, and I'm concerned that he might need further evaluation. I plan to consult his pediatrician once I have a clearer understanding of the situation. Since he doesn't exhibit this behavior at home, I'm unsure how to address it beyond discussing it as we did with the toy throwing issue. What other steps can I take? Since turning 3, he has become more defiant. And while we're addressing this, additional tips would be helpful. We're unsure if our current strategies are effective, as there's been little improvement. He typically resists when it's time to do something. Put on shoes and socks, brush teeth, take a bath, use the potty, etc. Occasionally, we manage to gain his cooperation by offering to resume an enjoyable activity after the task, reminding him that fun doesn't have to stop for potty breaks. In the mornings, he's more likely to put on his shoes for school if he gets to choose them and bring a favorite toy for the car ride. For bath time, we let him turn the water on and promise him vitamin gummies, essentially giving him some control and a small incentive. We maintain routines at home, and I believe they do the same at school. However, while these strategies result in cooperation, they don't prevent resistance the next time. Any additional tips would be appreciated. First update, ATPs, www, reddit.com/r/toddlers/comments/y7, lcrq/update_daycare_took_me_to_talk_about_my_3, yo, October 18th, 2022. I still have not had the meeting with them yet. That is scheduled for 10 a.m. on Thursday. However, there is something new that is upsetting me. My son came home with poop in his underwear today. When I went to pick him up, I smelled poop in the hallway in his classroom fairly strongly. I thought maybe a kid had a big poo right before I arrived, but kept smelling it in the car. I was checking my infant son's diaper and his bag, wondering if he had a diaper blowout earlier and dirty clothes in his bag, but then realized getting my 3-yo out of the car that it was him. The poop was fused to his butt and his underwear. I had to throw the underwear away. It must have been there a while. How could his teacher not have noticed? It was stinking up the whole school. And then my car. I feel like I need to talk to them about this tomorrow morning. I'm afraid they'll blame him for being difficult. If he wasn't letting her change him, she should have called me. There's no excuse for him sitting in poopy underwear. Thoughts? What should I say? I was afraid of this, that because he's now the difficult one, that the care he receives will suffer for it. Last week, we had a meeting with the daycare, which was a story in itself. It was scheduled for 10 a.m. on Thursday via Zoom with my husband and I, the daycare, and a child development expert from the daycare's parent company. However, by 10:15 a.m., we still hadn't received the Zoom link. After I called the daycare, the temporary director answered, explaining that she had been in a classroom and didn't see the email. She discovered the Zoom link had only been sent to her instead of us. She then wanted to consult the child development expert about what to do next. They decided to reschedule the meeting to 11:30 a.m., which unfortunately meant my husband couldn't attend due to a previously scheduled lunch. The director started discussing my son's behavior, saying it was random and not triggered by anything specific. However, she also mentioned that he has difficulties listening, following instructions, and takes a long time in the bathroom, all of which seemed like potential triggers for his behavior. Furthermore, she claimed my son had consistency in his teachers, which was not the case as he had had 5 different teachers since April. The rescheduled meeting finally happened at 11:30 a.m. I was surprised to learn that the primary issue was not his difficulty following instructions, but his rough behavior with other children. This was news to me. They also mentioned his refusal to nap and the disruption it caused as a problem. They suggested I might need to start picking him up for his naps, which could potentially jeopardize my job as the family's primary breadwinner. I decided to consult his pediatrician to ensure his behavior wasn't a red flag. The doctor confirmed that his behavior was typical for a 3-year-old. I'm starting to think the daycare, being understaffed and overwhelmed, is the real issue. It's unrealistic to expect a 3-year-old to stay quiet for a 2-hour nap period. His refusal to listen, saying no to instructions, rough play with other kids, and hitting are all normal developmental behaviors. I reached out to my older son's previous daycare. They reassured me that my son's behaviors were minor and had no staffing issues. They even had openings for both of my kids. It's a bit of a commute from our new house, but since my husband works in the same town, he can handle the drop-offs. We've given notice to the current daycare, and my children will start at the old daycare in 2 weeks. Hearing this story underscores the complex dance between a child's needs, parental instincts, and the realities of daycare systems. It's a vivid reminder of the resilience required to navigate these waters, the importance of consistent care, and the impact of adult decisions on the smallest members of our families. It's a tale that many can relate to, sparking conversations about how we can better support both children and parents in these crucial early years. 2 weeks ago, my world turned upside down when I discovered the hidden truth about my daughter's relationship, pushing me to the brink of what I thought I was capable of as a father. Confronted with the chilling reality of her abuse, I took matters into my own hands in a moment of rage and desperation, leading to an encounter that would change our lives forever. Here's how it all went down. Hello, Reddit community. This is my first time here, and I've heard that this is a place where one can receive helpful advice. My apologies if my writing isn't the best. 2 weeks ago, an incident occurred that I need advice on. I'm a 49-year-old man, and I've been a single parent for the past 15 years. I lost my wife to cancer when our daughter was just 7 years old. Now our daughter is 22. Raising her on my own was a challenging journey. I don't plan to remarry, so my daughter, whom I'll refer to as Liz, is my entire world. Liz and I share a close bond, though she often keeps certain aspects of her life, like her relationships, to herself. I respect her privacy and have encouraged open communication, reassuring her that I will always support her. Over the years, I've met a few of her boyfriends, so it's not a matter of trust. She moved out when she was 20 and has been living alone since. I visit her frequently and help her with various tasks as needed. Recently, she started dating a guy she met at a bar. I believe his name is John. Since she began seeing him, she's been less forthcoming with her visits. I need to inform her days in advance, which wasn't necessary before. At first, I thought it was just a sign of her maturing and her relationship progressing. I've met John a few times and, to be honest, I didn't take a liking to him. I can't pinpoint why, but something about him just didn't sit right with me. I've noticed some changes in her behavior recently. Despite my inquiries about her well-being and her relationship with John, she remains reticent. She often changes the subject and is reluctant to discuss anything. Even inviting her to dinner required considerable persuasion. When I've seen her, she's always been heavily clothed and wore substantial makeup, which was unusual for her. She became defensive and evasive when asked about John, almost as if she feared him. I've spotted fresh bruises on her arm and neck that she's tried to conceal. When questioned, she offered typical excuses, like bumping into something at work or falling while cycling. I found her explanations suspicious and confronted her. She reacted angrily, insisting that I drop the matter. My suspicions about John's involvement grew as her personality had changed considerably since his entry into her life. I was certain he was physically abusing her. During a surprise visit to her home 2 weeks ago, John answered the door. Liz emerged from her room, visibly surprised. Without her usual layers of clothing and makeup, I could see all the bruises and handprint marks on her body. In a rage, I confronted John, which I now regret, and ejected him from her apartment. Despite her anger and distress, she insisted everything was fine and that I was overstepping my boundaries. She asked me to leave, but I reassured her I would always be there for her as her father. Since then, she's been distant, rejecting all dinner invitations. She confirmed that she's left John, but still refuses to see me. I don't believe I did anything wrong, but I can't shake the feeling that I've somehow made a mistake. So, am I the jerk here? Many of you suggested that she might still be in touch with him, and this could explain her distance from me. I didn't want to believe it, but it appears you were somewhat right. I'll explain everything. As I mentioned in my previous post, I've been keeping tabs on her to ensure John wasn't around. After reading many comments, I decided to muster up the courage to talk to my daughter about what happened. I called in sick to work and planned to spend the day with her. I didn't inform her beforehand, intending it to be a surprise. To be honest, I also wanted to see if John was there without giving him a heads up. As you suggested, he could still be around. So I headed to her place early, picking up some flowers and her favorite snacks on the way. As I was climbing the stairs to her apartment, I heard loud screaming and banging. It was a chilling sound. I hoped it wasn't him and that my daughter was safe. My heart was racing. When I reached her floor, I saw him banging on the door, shouting to be let in. At that moment, it felt as if time stood still. I dropped the flowers and snacks and approached him. He was too engrossed in his actions to notice me. I assure you, I hit him so hard that I not only broke his nose but possibly some of my fingers too. I didn't stop hitting him, not even when he fell unconscious. The only reason I stopped was because my daughter pulled me off him. She had been watching through the door peephole. This time she didn't yell at me. She hugged me. I managed to compose myself and told her to pack her most important belongings, as she would be staying with me until everything was resolved. She silently went back into her apartment to pack. Unbelievably, he was still alive and starting to get up. I warned him never to show his face again and to leave my daughter alone. He nodded and I let him go. Liz eventually came out with a small suitcase and we returned to my place. In the turmoil, I forgot her flowers and snacks at the apartment. She's now safe under my roof, and I can't thank you all enough. I dread to think what might have happened if I hadn't shown up or taken your advice. Currently, she's cooking my favorite meal while I sit on the porch having a beer and typing this out. I'll seek legal advice because I did hurt John badly, and I understand the potential consequences. I'm grateful for all your advice. I'll update you if I don't end up in jail. For now, I'm looking forward to a meal with my daughter. I appreciate your support. Goodbye for now. Hearing this story, it's a stark reminder of the complex and often harrowing journey of love, protection, and the lengths to which one might go to safeguard a loved one. It underscores the importance of communication, understanding, and the delicate balance between intervening and overstepping. While the actions taken were extreme, they were born out of a deep-seated desire to protect, highlighting the profound impact of domestic abuse, not just on the victims, but on their families too. In the bustling heart of a new city, under the roof of my girlfriend's apartment, I found myself caught in the crossfire of independence and my mother's overbearing love. Here's how it all went down. I'm a 20-year-old male who's recently started university and moved to a different city to live in my girlfriend's apartment. I rarely visit my parents' house due to my mother's behavior. My mother has always been overly concerned about me, but it became problematic last summer when I started dating my first girlfriend. We spent the whole summer at her parents' house and moved into a new apartment together in December. Suddenly, my mother started arguing with me about not finishing school and losing all my muscles, despite my excellent academic performance and regular training. She continually comments on my appearance, claims I look skinnier even though I haven't lost any weight, and insists I should have stayed home for an easier life. However, I don't want an easy life. She has always done everything for me, never allowing me to cook, clean, or be independent. Her constant questioning about my activities and companions is intrusive, yet she's never restricted my freedom. I often find myself lying to avoid her barrage of questions. I appreciate my mother's care, but it feels excessive. I want to be independent, and my girlfriend has been instrumental in teaching me essential life skills. My mother frequently insists on speaking to me, calling almost daily with repetitive questions that I sometimes hang up on. She repeatedly criticizes my relationship, claiming my girlfriend doesn't love me, and is a spoiled brat because we're not as wealthy as her family. Despite my assurances, she insists on speaking on my girlfriend's behalf. My girlfriend has become frustrated with her behavior and doesn't want to interact with her until she changes, which I understand, even though it saddens me. My mother incessantly asks for photos of mundane things, claiming she can't sleep without them. She's even resorted to calling instead of texting due to her fear of hackers. Additionally, she's overly curious about my social circle and has been intrusive about my girlfriend's family, insisting on meeting them despite their disinterest. A recent incident involved me needing a table for my apartment. I told her I'd assemble it myself, but she ignored my request and assembled it anyway, claiming I wasn't intelligent enough to do it myself. This upset me since I wanted to assemble the table myself, and now had to move it up 7 floors. My girlfriend thinks I should ignore my mother's calls and refrain from visiting until she recognizes that I'm an adult. However, I can't completely cut her off because I'm financially dependent on my parents, as is my girlfriend on hers. I won't be fully independent until I finish university and secure a job. Despite all this, I can't help but wonder if I'm a bad son for wanting independence. I hang up on her, ignore her, and she acts despondent, wanting her son back. However, my desire for independence remains steadfast. After hearing the story, I couldn't help but feel a mix of admiration and sympathy for the narrator. It's a tough journey, trying to find your own path while tangled in the strings of familial expectations and love. It makes you wonder about the fine line between caring and controlling, and how hard it must be to navigate that space without losing yourself or the ones you love. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk. Subscribe.